You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to episode 174 of the On Purpose Podcast. I'm excited to be with you again this week, and I want to thank again our Patreon members whose financial contributions keep this show up and rolling, and we can't do it without you. So thanks to all of you, and if you're interested in joining that group, please go over to our Patreon page at patreon.com, the On Purpose Podcast. Lots of membership options there for you to choose from. And as always, we thank you for being part of our team. This week is kind of special to me because I love seeing things go full circle. And we had Ryan Chartrand on a couple weeks ago. And this week I have another guest who kind of found us at the very beginning of the podcast and actually was with us before we even started a podcast in one of our Circle of Fives that we little conference calls we did shortly after I retired. And now she's out blazing her own way through the world, and she's going to come share some stories with us as a community. So this week I want to welcome in Kate Kimble. Kate, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my goodness, of course. I've been watching, and I saw you did a story about Jackie Pearson and yoga and law enforcement and stuff, and I was like, I read it and I was like, oh, this is so awesome. And I just saw a lot of growth in that. I was like, okay, it's time to get you on the show and let's talk about this journey you've been on since I met you. I think you said 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. That's for sure.
7 years ago, you came to Fort Collins, Colorado with a job description that, if I remember right, doesn't much match what you actually do nowadays.
Right. Yeah. I came from the private sector. I was that person that got a communications degree, and I thought, oh, that'll give me a lot of options after college, which was a great thought. But after college, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this degree? My whole career has really just been that journey of following things that I'm excited about, things that are maybe a little bit scary, but exciting, and jumping into pools that are maybe a little deeper than I'm used to swimming in, and then growing in that. And I think that really led me to this place where, like you said, I saw the job description. We loved Colorado and wanted to move out here. And my husband was law enforcement at the time. And so it was just a great combination of being able to tell stories and use those skills I had as a communicator professionally, but also tap into the passion I have for telling stories, especially untold stories and public service stories.
Yeah, amazing. I love that philosophy of jumping into a pool that you're not sure you're supposed to be swimming in.
Yeah, always reach. And I feel like if you're swimming in a pond where you feel completely competent and like you're the big fish in the pond, to continue the metaphor, you're not going to grow. You grow to the size of your tank. And so keep seeking out those larger bodies of water. And so you can keep growing in professionally and personally.
Oh, I love it. All right. Whoa, you can't jump too far ahead. Not too.
No, that's true.
Okay. I got to warm you up. Our audience is used to you getting warmed up, right? So we got to run through a little warm up here and get your mind and your body ready to go. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. First warm up question, Kate. You find yourself on a deserted island for the rest of your life. What food do you eat?
Ooh, salad.
What?
I know I get made fun of, and I just love vegetables. I ordered green beans at Disney World. I feel like salad's pretty versatile. You can make it an unhealthy salad if you really want. I don't know if that's cheating because it's a category, but I really like salad a lot.
I gotta tell you, Kate, that threw me for a loop right there. I've heard a lot of things for that answer over 174 episodes, but I think this is the first salad request.
Yeah, I do love me a good salad.
What would you get? A dressing then? Like, what dressing would you take?
Ooh, if I had to pick just one, I would probably go with like a oil and vinegar. I'm a ranch fan. I'm a Midwest girl at heart, and so I put ranch on everything. But I think if it's for the rest of my life, I think the oil and vinegar will just be a nice complement to whatever I'm.
Well, that's definitely gonna keep you fit, trim, and healthy to be diving into the ponds over there for sure. All right, next warm-up question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why would you want it?
I read a book one time about, it was obviously a fiction book, where there was a room someone could go in and like time there passed more quickly than time on the outside. So it's like the room you can go to get extra time.
Ooh.
It's my little time and space room. Hopefully I use it for good purposes of like rest and rejuvenation, getting a little extra sleep, but catching up on projects, or just kind of I don't know. I like the idea of protracting time a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, especially, you know, as we continue down this journey and the world continues to evolve and we go year after year, it just certainly seems to speed up for us.
It absolutely does.
All right, what book are you reading? What is your favorite book?
Ooh, I just finished Why We Sleep like yesterday, and it is a absolutely fantastic read. I highly recommend it. A sleep scientist um, put together his body of research, and it's all about, as the title would indicate, why we sleep. It talks about the different stages of sleep and what they do, and just the really interesting neuroscience behind deep sleep and REM sleep and how that impacts your day. I mean, it's not just a time for your brain to sort of get away from your mind. It does a lot more. So that was a fantastic read. Just finished that, and I'm starting up Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. That's next on my list. And then my favorite book is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Ooh, nice. What
Yeah.
about that book?
I read that first in ninth grade. It was an assigned reading, and it was just very well written. It's one of those books you can kind of lose yourself in. It's a coming of age story, and it just never gets old. I've probably read it 20 times.
I love rereading books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I read really fast, and so my husband doesn't. He's like, "How do you get all the words?" I'm like, "Well, I don't. That's why I can reread them because I find something new every time."
Yeah, that's funny. All right, if you could have dinner with anybody, either currently with us or has passed away, who would it be, and what would you want to ask them?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. I think probably my great grandfather, my mom's dad, my mom's grandfather. They came over to the U.S. from Poland. They immigrated here, and just very hardworking, down to earth people. And I don't know a lot about them. I mean, my grandmother's told me a little bit about them, but he was a gardener. And I'm told that he would just like that was his happy place. He would go out into his garden every day after work and just kind of lose himself in that and reset. And like I said, I really don't know a lot about him, but that had to be such. I can't imagine leaving my home country and emigrating to a new place and raising a family. I would just love to kind of pick his brain about that. And then I love gardening too, so just kind of connect on that.
Oh, nice. Where did they immigrate to? Where did they come to in the U.S.?
The Philadelphia area.
Okay.
That's where my grandmother was raised and my mom was raised, and yeah, so love that area.
That would be an awesome conversation to watch you two out in the garden, digging in the dirt
Yeah.
and learning that history. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty crazy at times. We were just talking about this morning about how fast we move on from generation to generation, and just like this example here, like you don't know much about him, but it wasn't that long ago.
Right. It really wasn't. I mean, my mom knew him when she was younger, so there's still that generational connection, but I never met him, and just that passing of stories, and that's something that I just feel so connected to the idea of the oral tradition of storytelling. So I love your podcast and the whole concept of podcasting, because there's something to be said for sharing stories through people, not just documenting them on paper.
And what do you think that is? Why do you think we are so fascinated with stories?
I think that we are all kind of trying to figure our way out through life, not to get like too big too fast here philosophical, but like I'm a parent. It doesn't come with a handbook, as it turns out. I'm still waiting for that in the mail to figure out, how do we raise our kids? How do we raise our kids in this age? And so I think just looking at that social connection we have, whether it's people who are alive today and we're kind of watching their story and sharing stories, it helps us navigate our own path. And then I think that there's just a lot of wisdom and just that human experience of our ancestors and our parents, grandparents, great grandparents, to see what struggles they went through, because that's the best roadmap we have. We all have to set our own roadmap, but I think that probably just kind of helps us navigate this crazy journey.
I love it, and you're absolutely right. There's no handbook, not a handbook to parenting, but a handbook to life.
Right.
Right, like we come into this and nobody really knows all the answers, and the answers that are right for you may not be right for me. And to me, one of the things I love about the podcast and having a platform to share stories and to allow people to share their stories is relatability.
Absolutely. The interesting thing is every generation is figuring out, there are common themes, I think, in the experience that we have with our parents, our grandparents. But right now we are creating a world with the advent of technology and social media. I mean, no one has ever experienced today before. No one has experienced life in this sphere of all the tools and technology we have available. So we're charting that path, and navigating it is tough when you're on the leading edge of that. And so I think you're absolutely right with that. Relatability is how are we navigating it as a bunch of people who are sort of on the cutting edge of that, living right now? And then how did people navigate those similar challenges? I mean, I think a lot about during the pandemic, I thought about wartime generations that were in these wars. And now we have the benefit of being able to look back, oh, well, it ended, over this period of time. Well, at the time, they had no idea how that was going to end. They didn't know when it was going to end, and they still navigated that very uncertain time. And I thought about the victory gardens that people, planted in wartime. And I thought, gosh, with the pandemic and just so much that's going on right now, like, what is our victory garden? What does that look like? And so that's just been sort of a thought to muse on, to try to take some of that relatability from previous generations and apply it today.
Oh man, I love that. And that's so telling. I think it also reminds me of the dangers that we face if we erase stories because we don't like what the story was, or we don't like how the story unfolded. Right?
Absolutely.
Because we can learn from it. And that is the important part of documenting life. And now we have so much ability to document everything. And a lot of times we document things to our own hindrance, like, between non-factual facts and all the other stuff that just kind of perpetuates the airwaves. But we get to document history. And in the past, you had to be a certain status or have accomplished certain things to document history, or, you had to have gone to school to be able to write when not everybody could go to school. And now literally all of us can document our history.
Right. And I think sometimes that information overload, like you said, we kind of almost overdo it and we get lost in the details. And so it's really important, I think, as individuals and as organizations and as a generation to take some time to reflect on what are we learning here. In my work in crisis communications, whenever I'm in the middle of a crisis, I think, what do I want this case study to look like? A year from now, if I'm presenting this moment as a case study, how do I want to look back at the history that I'm creating right now and say, oh, wow, I did that well, or I probably would not have done that again. And I think we can, again, zoom back out and look at how we have operated in the past as individuals, as organizations, and as a society, and say, wow, what did we do right? And what do we not want to repeat? And are we doing that right now and have that reflection?
For sure. And what about this, Kate? What about if all individuals took a moment to pull up their social media and scroll through it and go, would I want the historians to look back at this? What would they think of my time on Earth?
Yeah, I mean, you're creating your own time capsule. It's funny, you just look back at your own posts from the early days of social media, and I mean, it's almost embarrassing sometimes, just because the platform was designed differently, and we just would say silly, ridiculous things like no one cares that I was saying that. I don't even care. Why did I say this? Why did I share that opinion in a way that was harmful? Yeah. And going to your point about, I think we feel like we can erase history or we can erase what happened, but everybody's documenting it on social media and nothing really goes away. I mean, you can delete that post, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gone. And so I do think it's important, like you said, to look back or to take your future self. I think about future Kate a lot. She gives me a lot of advice. I'm like, all right, future Kate is looking
I love that analogy. I was just sharing that the other day with somebody. Who like, hey, so you retired from police? What, do you draw a pension? I'm like, no, that's future Jerrod's money. That's future Jerrod and Andrew.
Yeah.
So what does future Kate tell you?
I have put a lot of trust and faith in future Kate, whether that's like a project. I'm like, I'm sure future Kate will figure it out. It's brilliant. I have no ideas now, but she's got it. And I reflected on this a lot in the pandemic, and I try to stay connected to future Kate now because she is the voice of reason. And just, I think it's important when we listen to our future voice to make sure it is our voice. And this is something I've talked to some of my friends about quite a bit, because not in a kind of like unhealthy way, like the voices that we hear on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. I think it's always important to ask, whose voice is that? Whose voice is driving me to make this decision? Whose voice is judging my actions? And so I think, again, applying that to our future voice, future Kate is the best version of me. She's kind of like a maternal presence who is helping me along the way, is not judging me too harshly for my mistakes, but is holding me accountable. And so she knows the right answer. She knows the right thing to do. It's sort of that guiding principles and ethics, she's the best version of myself. And so I can look forward and say, all right, here, future Kate, how do I want to be living in this moment? Is this something I will look back on and say, yeah, I'm proud of how I handled that situation, or I'm proud of how I managed my energy and showed up for my family and developed professionally. If I ask that question honestly to just future Kate and I tune out the other voices, she'll give me an answer. And it's not always, yeah, you're doing a great job. It's, hey, let's maybe course correct here.
I absolutely love that. You know what I liked the most about future Kate's story there is
Mhm.
she didn't once ask you to guarantee an outcome.
Oh no,
She wasn't
absolutely not.
worried. She was worried about how did you show up, right? Because,
Hmm.
and I think that's so important. A lot of us shy away from anything that is risky for the future because we're so worried about what the outcome is going to be. And
Hmm.
we don't control outcomes. We control how we show up and how do we prepare to be there and what do we do when we're in that moment. And I think that's telling that your future voice isn't asking like to only do things that you're going to win at or be successful at. It's asking you, how did you show up?
Right. And when I think about my future self, whether that's tomorrow or 10 years from now, it's never what do I have? What did I accomplish? It's more who do I want to be and how do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? Because there are going to be infinite opportunities to take risks and to take on projects and to, do, like you said, seek those outcomes. But at the end of the day, who we are and how we are is what is going to be a better predictor of success in that moment for me.
Absolutely, and that's so good. And I love future voice, and
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember, but one of the exercises we did way back in the Circle 5 was identifying whose voice was talking to us the most, right? And we talk,
Yeah.
especially with our limiting beliefs.
Hmm.
And that almost always, when you do that exercise, is somebody from the past, whether it's a
Yep.
critical parent or a teacher or a coach that negatively impacted you. And that a lot of times that voice is telling you what you can't do and what you're not going to be successful at. And I find too many people still in today's age spend so much time listening to the past voices instead of looking to like what you're talking about, to the future voice, what is possible.
Absolutely. I think that it's unwritten. I mean, that's the best thing about the future is it is unwritten. Now, are we trending in different directions based on our own behaviors, based on society's sort of trajectory? Yeah, absolutely. But it's unwritten right now. And so I think it's important to remember that we have the opportunity to make decisions based on those future voices and the direction we want to go and not be hindered by those crippling voices of the past.
I know, and the thing I love about what you're saying here, and that I fully agree with, is when you embrace your future voice, you silence the past voices.
Yeah.
They're no longer as loud because you're not living in what used to be or why I can't do things or who didn't believe or whatever the case in the past is. The past is the past for a reason. Like we moved through it, and when you let the
Hmm.
future guide some of your present, I think that opens up so many doors that you might have missed because you weren't looking through the right lens.
Absolutely. And I think it's a balance. I mean, kind of like we talked about before with history and the lessons it can provide. Those past voices may be instructive. You may have positive voices in your past as well. You may have negative experience or negative voices, and we can learn from them and use that to ensure that we're not maybe making some of the mistakes or just growing through our experiences and then looking to that future voice for where am I going? Who, excuse me, who am I going to be? How am I going to be?
No, absolutely. So I want to talk kind of on this same line here. Is you have a theme for 2022, which I think is super awesome to set not just a goal, but like a mantra of what do I want to be doing in this year. Not necessarily the things I need to achieve or certain monetary aspects or any of the tangibles, but more of my spirit. Like what is my, I would say, purpose? What is my energy going to go to for the year? And in 2022, you have set a theme for you. I'd like you to talk to us a little bit about that, Kate.
Yes. So I'm really bad at keeping New Year's resolutions, as many people are. I forget by March. And so years ago, a friend told me she does a theme for the year. It's very easy to remember a word or a phrase rather than I have to accomplish this specific goal. And if I don't, then I feel like I failed. And so, in the past, I've had these ambitious themes of kind of outcome based and accomplishment based. But this year I decided that my theme was going to be fallow. And the idea came to me when I was, at the end of the year, I start really thinking about what that theme is going to be, and I can't force it. It comes to me, and I trust that it comes to me, but it's sometimes at the last minute. And this one was like December 30th, and I'm looking outside. I'm like, well, thank you for showing up at the last minute, but it always comes to me at the right time. I'm looking out my kitchen window, and my husband and my kids built a garden bed last year. And going back to this garden theme, I just connect a lot. Like I talked about my grandfather, my great grandfather, my mom, my aunts were all just gardeners and find peace there. And so I looked out the window, and we've had this garden bed for a year, but it struck me because there was snow on top of it. And I thought, there is stuff happening under that snow. There's stuff happening underground. I have no idea what it is, but I trust that something is going to sprout in the spring. And that, maybe we don't have anything planted right now. The earth is just sort of regenerating, renourishing itself. I'm not forcing it to grow anything right now. And I thought, gosh, maybe that's what I need to do for the year ahead. We've been through so much with the pandemic and civil unrest and just managing a lot. And even before the pandemic, just a fast-paced job in life that I've had. Maybe it's time for me to just let the earth rest. And that just resonated so strongly that I was like, okay, it's my fallow year. And it is, it's easy to think about being fallow on December 31st when you're inside, it's cold, you've got your warm mug of tea. It is harder to stick to that come spring, like literal spring, when it's getting warm outside and there's more opportunities and the world's opening back up again from pandemic stuff, and you want to go. And I come to work, and it is a fast-paced 24-hour environment where I could just go until I hit a wall, and I've done that. So it has definitely taken more self-control as the year has gone on to remember, hey, I can trust that there are things happening below the surface of my mind and my spirit that I don't have to be in control of, that I can trust that my mind is doing things in the background if I just give it the rest it needs. And that's not just not thinking or not doing, it's meditating, it's taking time to get enough sleep, doing things that are rejuvenating me, but without an immediate outcome or an obvious piece. I think a lot of it comes down to trust. And letting go of that control a little bit of my conscious mind.
I love it. In preparing for this, I was reading through your stuff, and you talked about hitting walls because you weren't watching where you were going or managing your energy and priorities. Do you have a specific example of when something took place and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So prior to this job, I've never worked in a job that is a 24-hour operation that is so fast-paced and where the stakes are so high. And so I came into this full speed, it's a fun job. It's an exciting job. I love the people that I'm working with. I owe so much to them, I feel, to tell their story, to honor their story, to help victims, that kind of thing. And so it's a big, big burden in a good way, but I kept shouldering it. And in 2017, we had a series of just really hard cases, emotionally wrenching cases. And I just kept going. And it's funny, you think about when you are going to maybe hit a wall or find yourself in a sort of situational depression type state, it's like, oh, there's going to be the one thing, coming into law enforcement, it's like, it's going to be that case, the one case that's going to hit you hard. And there are those cases, and I've had them, but those aren't the ones where I hit the wall. It's that cumulative stress of continuing to shoulder the emotional burden of working and never slowing down, because you feel compelled to keep running. And it's almost like I remember our staff psychologist, Dr. Dan, I talked about hypervigilance early on. You come to work and you're full speed and you're on alert and you're doing all the things, and you go home and you just kind of crash, and then you get up and you do it again. And it becomes this cycle where your life at home is just your crash place. And then you come to work, and then that workday expands beyond the boundaries of your hours that you work. And that's what I did in 2017. I just kept running. I kept expending that energy. I was exhausting myself, and I found myself in a really just kind of rough spot. And I didn't know why. I didn't have any indication, because there wasn't that case. And I finally had some important and tough conversations at home where it was like, okay, I don't know what's happening right now, but I need to maybe slow down. It was actually, I read the book Anam Cara by John O'Donohue. He's an Irish poet and philosopher.
Uh-huh.
And there's just a lot in there about exhaustion, like kind of on the spiritual level. It's not the, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sleepy, I should take a nap.
Right.
That brought me back to, I need to slow down. I need to think about how much energy I'm expending on a day-to-day basis, because work is fun. You can run hard, but you only get so much each day, and you need to reserve some of that for your family and get good rest beyond just sleep, but spiritual rest as well.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, and I think the danger in that is your body tells you when you're tired, right? Like you only go so much, and then you're yawning, you're falling asleep, like, okay, I got to rest. But your spirit doesn't really have that voice. Like if you don't pay attention to it, you can run it ragged.
Yeah. You
Right.
absolutely can. And you're always the last to know. I learned that the hard way.
You are.
I mean,
and that's the importance of people around you. Like, will they look out for you?
yeah. And you need trusted people who can say, hey, and sometimes I think that's part of tuning into your future voice, going back to the whole idea of, what's future Kate telling me? I wasn't listening to future Kate. I was listening to right now, Kate. I was listening to maybe voices of the past. And my sense of, responsibility for this moment, for this case, for this, situation. I wasn't looking from a wider perspective, from that future perspective on how really am I showing up, not just to this moment, but to this day, to this week. How am I pacing myself? I was just all very narrowly focused on what needed to be done right now, and then just going to the next thing.
Yeah, and I think at times it's easy to fill our life with the things, the to-do list, this has to happen next, this has to happen next, almost as a shield to not have to answer to our future selves.
Yeah. When you take that step back, it is challenging when you have run into a wall and you realize that you're not the only one that has been harmed by that.
Absolutely.
Your family, your friends.
Because your boys were little. Your boys
Yeah.
were little in 2017.
Yeah, they're 9 and 11 now. So, we've got little kids, and I'm excited about my career. And it's one of those, like, I never wanted to be the parent that wasn't present. Even if I was physically present, I was not mentally present for my family in that time. And I look back, and that's not something I'm proud of, but I'm also not, putting shame on myself for that either. I took that opportunity to learn and grow. And I think that we all go through those moments, and no one is going to be perfect their whole life. And that you don't get to be your best version of yourself by never making mistakes. And so I think it was I wish that I didn't run into the walls. I wish I'd managed the energy better, but I don't know that there's any way you can learn that without maybe going through it once or twice. So hopefully that was my one time.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And I think that is such a great point, is that our obligation in life is not to avoid mistakes at all costs and to avoid the pain of learning at all costs. It's to recognize it and then learn from it and hopefully not repeat it.
Exactly. And I think that that's something where, as we reflect on that, we then have to hold ourselves accountable, and that future voice is going to hold you accountable, but you can also build that into your trusted friends and family. Once you reflect on something and you found, hey, I could have done that better, I don't want to do that again. Be really open in those conversations with the people you trust, so they can say, hey, I feel like you're kind of going down this path, develop that language together. It's sometimes hard to hear. I mean, it's hard to hear critical feedback, but if you're going to be the last to know, those are the folks who can give you that early warning, so you don't go down that path and run into walls again. Say, hey, you seem like you're really burning the candle at both ends. And my husband's been fantastic about that over the years of sitting down and having that conversation of, you seem like you're going really hard. So what's that look like? What do you know?
Yeah.
And think through that. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I love your husband, Justin. I was talking to you off air. He's one of the most genuine, humble guys I've met in a long time, and especially, not to dig in law enforcement, but having 21 years in that career field, ego has a certain role. It keeps you safe. It lets you walk into danger. It lets you do a lot of things, but it also hinders a lot of people, and that they don't ever let it go. And that's one thing I'll always, when I think of your husband, that's what I remember is, like, clearly the family came first for him,
Mm-hmm.
And he has such a good balance on his ego. He's just a good guy to be around, and it does not surprise me that he would sit down and ask you a question like that.
Yeah, we are so different in so many ways in terms of personality types. We met in high school, so we've been able to grow up together, and so there's a lot of ourselves that is has developed because of each other, but we are still very different in terms of our personality. So he has just been the very best balance in that conversation. I like to joke, I mean, it's true, but we have all the Myers-Briggs letters between us. We are opposites. So like we can rule the world. We just got to play to our strengths and
Yeah.
make sure in those moments, we can see things about each other that we can't see about ourselves. And so it's really important to have those balancing people in your life that you trust, that see you and love you, but can also say, hey, uh, we need to talk about where you're at right now. I don't think this is where you want to keep going.
And one of the things I love is like going all the way back to the article about yoga and law enforcement
Mm-hmm.
is past Kate in 2017 that was working hard and hard and hard on things and things and things may not have appreciated the importance of yoga and law enforcement and meditation, just
Mm-hmm.
being present in a minute. Like you had to go through what you went through to now recognize in 2022, like, hey, I should share this story because this is really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. It's interesting in a service-driven profession. And if you are if you're a people pleaser, if you are externally focused, any of those things, it feels very selfish to take time for yourself. And that is something that I've had to work through and continue to work through. And as a parent, um, as a partner, as a friend, I want to give, and I want to take care of people, and I want to do a good job. And I feel the sense of responsibility to the people that I'm serving through my work and through my life. And I have to continuously remind myself that I cannot serve them well if I'm not taking care of myself. And it seems like common sense. It seems like a no-brainer, but when you're taking that time away from your family to go meditate, to go exercise, to go decompress, to go sit on the back porch at the end of the day, um, I often feel like, man, should I be with them? But I have to remember that if I am physically present with them, but I am not mentally at a great place, I'm not with them.
Yes.
So it's a learning lesson. And I absolutely think that mindfulness and the yoga and just the focus on wellness for people working in law enforcement, both sworn and civilian, is incredibly important to remember. You have to build in that space. It is not wasted space. And going back to the sleep book I read, I always thought sleep was like escaping yourself. Like I get tired of myself at the end of the day. I need a little break from me. We spend all our time together. So this is just a great, like, hey, you go to your space and I'll go to mine. But what I've learned in reading this book is, and going to the fallow theme as well, sleep is not just wasted time where I have a lot of FOMO. I want to be
Right.
everywhere with everyone all the time. And sleep is the ultimate. Like, that's why I don't put myself to bed. I'm great when I go to bed. I go right to sleep, but I don't put myself to bed because I got the FOMO. I want to be I want to be physically present for everything, but I'm not mentally present. I'm not at my best if I don't get that rest. And when we're sleeping, that fallow activity below the surface is amazing. I mean, the things that our deep sleep does on a neuroscience level with moving your memories to the right place, to the long-term storage. You only have so much short-term storage in your brain, and that capacity to think and to function. And it's like rebooting the computer every night. It truly is. And then on the other kind of end of your sleep cycle is that REM sleep or your dream sleep. That is where your creativity comes from. It's where all the crazy, and I have some crazy dreams. I've always been a very vivid dreamer. And now I'm like, okay, that's actually serving me. That's solving your problems. That's actually taking your emotional experiences and taking some of the sting out of them. It helps us process challenging situations and emotions. So now that I know that, I'm like, gosh, that's a peek below the surface. That's what's happening to our fallow mind when we're sleeping. It's not just dead air time. It's a lot happening that we just have to trust. We're not steering it consciously, but a lot is happening. And I think that feeds again into how are we showing up for who we want to be and how we want to be today, tomorrow, 10 years from now. It's those day-to-day actions that we're taking. And it's just so important. It's hard. It's way easier said than done, but it's a constant practice.
No, for sure. And you're absolutely right. And the key word there is it's a practice, just like
Mm-hmm.
everything else in life. Like
Yep.
our habits are what we practice becomes our habits. And if we skip
Mm-hmm.
our self-care, if we cut our rest short, if we don't take time for ourselves, there's no way we'll ever be at our best.
Absolutely.
I was just having this discussion with a younger guy yesterday about the importance of being selfish, and that in order to be my best me for my wife and my family and the podcast, and anybody that I serve, in order to be my best me for them, I got to be my best me to me first.
Mm-hmm.
And we have such a negative connotation of selfishness in the world, but I argue that you can't. The best thing I could do for a lot of people is to be selfish and then give.
Yep. Right? Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup, and we don't hear that. And I do think we hear that selfish message a lot. I mean, depending on your role in society and in your family and in your work, like, yeah, it's sometimes ingrained, from that's that past voice saying you're selfish if you do this. And it's very negative if you take time for yourself.
Right. And one of the things, so you're a wordsmith. You're awesome with words. Selflessness. Mm-hmm. I struggle with selflessness because how can I be less of myself and be useful to people?
Yeah, I think that's one of those maybe insidious cultural valued kind of things that you can call me a wordsmith now. I can't find my words. But I mean, I do think it's a misnomer. I don't think selflessness is noble, but that has become this badge of honor. Oh, you're so selfless. Oh, you've sacrificed. There are valuable and honorable pieces of sacrifice, but I don't think selflessness is one of them, because you are bringing yourself to every situation. And if you are not keeping yourself in the equation, then you're really not contributing. And I think that's important, to always keep yourself in the equation in one way or another. And how much weight you have in the equation is situationally dependent. I mean, sometimes we got to suck it up and do things that are uncomfortable, that maybe don't feel like this is something I want to do right now, but in the bigger picture, this is what I need to do. Okay, yes, that happens. But I don't think that being continuously selfless is beneficial to anybody.
No, see, you're so much better at saying that than me. I 100% agree, because I was having this discussion, and like being on a team, right? Being on a team, you're supposed to be selfless, but I argue, I'm like, no, you should be selfish, right? So like, say I'm not the star player on the team for today's game, but I still have a role to play. Well, I want to be selfish in that role so that I learn something new about being there. I'm still not being the star. I'm still playing a supporting cast to the overall team, but I'm selfish in that role, in that I want to learn something from being here so that if I ever do it again, I'm better for it.
Mm-hmm. I almost feel like selfish and selflessness have already taken on too much cultural meaning. We should maybe just scrap them and come up with a new, I don't know that we can rebrand them. Let's just come up with new words.
Let's rebrand it right here, Kate. Yeah. What are we going to call that?
Well, I think this also is an interesting piece of the individualism of Western society, and then there's the collectivism of Eastern society. And in Western society, the self is central to so much of what we do. We're very independent and self-oriented. Maybe self-oriented is a better word, because I think there's things that we can learn from collectivist cultures, but I don't know that they talk about there's probably a perfect word in another language. There always is, some very long German language or something. Right. But I just think that maybe reorienting ourself in the equation might be helpful. I play a role. Maybe I'm not, because I think there is something to be said for, like, you don't want to be selfish to the detriment of others. That is when you are fully, completely 100% selfish. So maybe it's more about the ratio of how much of yourself is a part of the equation. When you're on a team, yeah, yourself is maybe 1/12 of the team. You need to be prepared and show up and be 100% in your role. But you are, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling now. I'll come up with maybe if I get some more REM sleep tonight, I'll have the perfect word for it tomorrow.
I love it. We'll do a follow-up on that. Yeah. But I do think I love what you said in that. Whether you understand or completely believe in being selfless at all, whatever your view on all that is, you are always part of the equation. Mm-hmm. Always. and you cannot remove yourself from it. Like, you do nobody a service if you show up, but you don't show up.
Exactly. Bring all of your contributions, but don't give everything away and leave nothing for yourself.
Ooh, very well said. See, that's the wordsmith I'm talking about. That is so awesome. So, Kate, tell me this. What is future Kate guiding you towards today? What is, obviously we got our theme for the year.
Mm-hmm.
What is future Kate wanting you to be doing?
Future Kate still has me in this, I don't know, this becoming place. I feel like it's been kind of a season of becoming for a couple of years now, where I have to give up control of what's next, where I have all the answers neatly laid out on a spreadsheet. And I'm pretty comfortable with ambiguity, and I've had to get very comfortable with ambiguity over the last couple of years. But it's very much still feels like the fallow season. Like I'm walking on a path, and the future is a little bit obscured with fog. And that's okay. I don't need to be able to peer into the future to know that I am going to be happy and successful because of XYZ. I think that this fallow season, I'm still trusting that the earth, that there's stuff happening under there. I'm working on my master's degree right now in strategic communication. I'm absolutely loving the coursework. And I went into this program without here's what I want to do with it when I'm done. And I'm trying to really adopt that mindset. And I think that's what Future Kate wants me to really lean into is I'm not doing the things I'm doing today because I am seeking the XYZ outcome. I'm doing it because, on the master's degree example, I love learning. I just want to see where it takes me.
Yes.
To trust that if you continue to do things day after day that are fulfilling and meaningful, that it's going to take you somewhere, and you don't have to have a roadmap to say, this is my destination. You're just going to enjoy. I mean, it's cheesy, but you're enjoying the journey. And so I'm trying very hard to embrace that journey. And I see this with raising kids is, man, it goes by fast. And so I haven't had a plan for, here's what I want my relationship with my child to be like when he is 9 or 11. It's, hey, here's how I want to look back on my experience as a parent and connection with my child. And I can look back and say, yeah, man, I have amazing memories. I don't say, oh, that was not successful because I don't have this memory on this date. It's like, here's been my experience as a person, as a parent. Same thing going forward is I just want to be able to look back on right now and say, at that stage in my life, I was, having meaningful connection with the people that mattered. I was using my time well, and I was, giving back to my family and to my agency and my community in a way that meant something. And that's all success is for me. So I don't need a destination to define that as success for today or tomorrow or 10 years from now.
That is such a powerful message, and thank you for sharing that. I couldn't agree more, and I'll tell you, just in my life, when I attach success to a certain thing, whether it was making a certain salary or getting a certain position or whatever, you're never truly happy because there's always another thing you want or another thing to achieve. And most of my best memories occur on the journey to the thing.
Yeah.
Yet we're always in such a race to get through the journey, we forget to look and enjoy it. And it's kind of what I call just taking my hands off the wheel, right? Like I'm going, but I'm not necessarily worried about the route anymore. Like I'm just going to do what I know I'm supposed to do every day, and I'll end up wherever I'm supposed to end up, because I think sometimes you get so hyper-focused on achieving a certain thing that there's this great other opportunity that's just one exit earlier, or there's this great relationship that is on a detour route. But because you're so focused, you miss that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
I think that where we're going, where we're going, it's like if you achieve something, like you said, it's constantly the then what, then what, then what. And you have to keep accomplishing to be considered successful. But I mean, I look at, I've had friends who've died young. I've had, grandparents who have died old. And I think, what was the measure of success in their life? Was it that they accomplished a thing? Is that my memory of them? Oh, they were a successful person because they did X, Y, Z. Or do I feel like the meaning and purpose in our connection was defined by our just interactions, our day-to-day moments, and that trajectory, that road that they were driving on, but maybe without a laser focus on, I have to get there quickly in the most direct route.
Yeah. No, I I agree. I couldn't agree more on that. And just kind of like we talked about earlier with your superpower is creating room for extra time. Right? And what would we do with that extra time? Well, we probably wouldn't use it to achieve another thing. If we're at the end of our life and we're like, oh, I need a little extra time, what are you going to want to do with that time? I'll almost guarantee you're like, I want to go talk to somebody. I want to go see my mom again. I want to go hug my kids one more time. It's not, I want to go to one more work meeting to plan the next thing.
Yep.
But we lose that focus because there's always tomorrow.
Well, and I think that is something that I've wrestled with on this fallow year is, I wish for that, or I say that my superpower would be to have that extra time and space. But when I reflect, I have that time and extra space in my day. And am I using it scrolling on social media? Like I have so much time in my day that I am not using. So it almost feels like, well, if I was going to have this superpower, it's sort of like you can't have seconds of your dinner if you're not eating your first plate. So right now, I mean, what is that first plate? Am I spending those moments? I'm waiting for my coffee, water to heat up. Okay. Am I scrolling on my phone? Is that really a good use of my time? Or am I looking out in my backyard and noticing things? And I was in Costa Rica a couple of years ago for training, and something that about going to another country is just you notice everything. Every moment is filled with noticing and being in awe and taking in of the moments that are around you. And that was actually after 2017. So I was there in 2018, and that was part of my coming back to reality a little bit of I noticed so much every day there, and I didn't feel that crush or that stress or that pressure to keep running because I was just present in the moment. And so it's a shame that in our day-to-day lives we lose the magic and the novelty of each moment. But we can put our phones down. We can say, I don't need to fill every space with something to entertain me. I can just take in so much that is happening around me already.
I love it. It's funny you bring up Costa Rica because, we spent a month there this last winter, and Pura Vida
Yes.
has been kind of our mantra for the year is Andrea and I checking and asking ourselves, are we living the pure life? Like, are our actions today leading to the pure life? And it's so goofy because we were traveling, and just out of convenience, we bought our groceries at Target for some reason, which we've never done ever. And we came out and we're like, we just don't feel good about this. Like this purchase just didn't feel good. And we're like, why? And we're like, we're so far from pure life here, like pura vida. Like this is shopping at Target's not the farmer's market. It's not,
right.
And it's so weird. But when you take that approach, it does part of having a pure life is you slow down.
It's funny that you say that. I heard the whole Pura Vida thing, and you hear it, you have the literal translation, but the moment that I understood it was we're sitting at a restaurant in Montezuma, Costa Rica, waiting for our food. It took a very long time to get it. I don't know what they were doing in the kitchen, but I realized I didn't care. And I saw this woman sitting at a table. She'd have a drink. She would go get in the ocean, splash around a little bit, come back and sit at the table, and then like 20 minutes later, repeat it. And it was just like this expansion of the present moment. And I was like, oh, this is what they mean. I don't care that the waiter has not come to refill our glasses. I don't care that it's taking a long time. I'm not on a schedule. I want to be that lady who's like, I think I'll go take a dip in the ocean, come back and dry off, and then maybe I'll do it again in a little bit if I feel like it. And it was just this endless afternoon, and it was wonderful. And it was that expansion of the pure life, the right now.
I love it. And I don't think we have to go to foreign countries to experience that. I think we can create it in our own world. But like you said, we have to be very purposeful about it and remind ourselves, like, what is this moment right here really supposed to be about?
Yeah. And I think we have to be intentional about it because you're right. We don't have to go other places for it. I think the culture shock of being somewhere new helps us recognize that feeling. But we've built our lives to be on a pace. And I think that our society, mainstream society dictates that pace. So no one is going to create that pace for you in your day-to-day life. Like that is a completely up to you and me to do for ourselves, to say, how do I want to structure my day?
Yeah.
Going back to all the things that you taught us in the Circle of Five and that you've talked about on this podcast of, are you making that space to get up and journal in the morning? Are you taking that time to exercise? Are you drinking your coffee on the porch? Are you building in space for meaningful connection with people and contemplation? If you're not, then you can build it, but it might take some time to re-engineer the way you've set up your life, but it can be done.
Absolutely. And that's all you got to do is take that time. So, Kate, I can't tell you how awesome this conversation's been, and what a great depth of knowledge you share with our community. I have a couple follow-up questions for you before we wrap up.
Sure.
And the first is, where can our listeners connect better with you at?
Oh, I am online. I'm on social media. So you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm trying to be there less, which is kind of a quandary, because thank you so much for the chance to have this conversation. I love deep, genuine conversations, and you have always just been such an inspiration and a wellspring of thoughtfulness.
Thank you.
So you can find me on social media, but if you ever want to just like get a cup of coffee, if you're in Fort Collins, reach out to me on one of those platforms. But I'm really good at drinking coffee with strangers. I do it for my job, and I also just like talking to people. So it won't be awkward. We'll just go full on, and we can talk about whatever. So if people want to connect, certainly on Twitter and LinkedIn, but also again, I'm always good for a cup of coffee.
Oh, I love it. And then, so one final question before I let you go. Is one of the, I would call you like one of the original members of the On Purpose community. Mm-hmm. What's one thing you can say that being part of this community has taught you, or you've learned from this journey with us?
I think that, your name says it all, On Purpose. And I see that woven into all of your conversations about what, are we giving thought to what we're doing it, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, or are we just going where the river takes us? And I really appreciate the way that you and all of your guests have gone below that surface and have decided, hey, here, I'm taking control of who I am and how I am. And it's not just floating along and, doing what mainstream society tells me to, or just meeting expectations and not having any kind of mindfulness about it. So that has really helped me just in so many different, and all the different topics you've covered, really sink into that a little bit and reflect more. So I love this community and the work that you're doing to bring us all together.
Kate, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait for part 2 in the future, my friend.
Thank you so much.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.